Amy Rose loves Sonic the Hedgehog. This is a fact that's been established since her debut in Sonic CD all the way back in September of 1993. As the manual says, the young Amy Rose does a tarot card reading and becomes convinced that Sonic is in fact her one true love, and in a burst of youthful, passionate energy, she runs to Little Planet to meet him in person, and the rest is history. But there's so much more to Amy's character than just her love for Sonic. This bubbly, hyper-energetic pink hedgehog has layers upon layers of personality and depth that when you peel it back, reveals an incredible story of growth and development that's right up there with some of the most well-written characters in history. Now, you're probably telling me in the comments that I'm out of my mind. After all, Amy has been through so many personality changes that one could make the argument she's borderline bipolar. She's shy and flustered in one moment, bold and flirtatious the next, and before you know it, she's ready to go ballistic on you with her hammer just for giving her a funny look. If you'll bear with me for just a few minutes, I'll explain how Amy's journey makes sense in one cohesive timeline. Even her lowest moments can be explained that way. Her growth as a character, her ever-increasing love and devotion for Sonic, and where she can go in the future. All of that, I will go ahead and I will explain that to you. Sit back and relax while I break down the evolution of Amy Rose and her love for her hero, Sonic the Hedgehog. So one thing that I don't see a lot of people discussing is exactly why Amy loves Sonic. After all, if her fortune cards had said that her one true love was the hypothetical boy next door playing video games every day, would she be just as enamored with him as she is with Sonic? Somehow, I doubt that. So what is it about Sonic specifically that draws Amy in like a magnet? What traits does he specifically have that no other character shares with him and makes him so attractive to her? Well, in order to determine why Amy loves Sonic, first we have to understand Amy herself and her evolution as a character. What do we know about her and who she is? Ask any casual person what they know about Amy, and they'll probably tell you that she has a crush on Sonic. And for a while, that was almost her entire character. It was what defined her, right? Think back to the days of Sonic Adventure, which was the first time in the games we saw this more grown-up version of Amy. Most Sonic fans nowadays will see the classic series as the team's younger years, with Amy being 8 years old at the time, which would make Sonic 11. By the time Sonic Adventure released, her bio was adjusted to her new age of 12, indicating that 4 years have gone by since the classic adventures and everything that entails. As a writer, I pay careful attention to the words used by characters. Listen to how Amy summarizes her feelings of being away from Sonic all this time.
Every day's the same old thing. Same place, different day. I miss the good old days. Hanging out with my hero, Sonic. Chasing bad guys. And blowing them away. But now he's gone. And there's nothing left to do. But shop till I drop. There was always something fun to do with Sonic around. I really miss him.
Right then and there, you know exactly what Amy's after. Yes, she has an obvious admiration and even infatuation for Sonic, but take note of the context in which she frames it. She doesn't go on a tangent about how handsome he is and what an amazing boyfriend he'd be. She immediately reflects on their past adventures together and how exciting it was to be on the run and being a hero. Now, at the time, the only real past adventures she could say she was really on would be the events of Sonic CD, which she spent almost the whole time captured by Metal Sonic, and of course there were some spin-offs like Sonic the Fighters, the Sonic Drift game, Sonic R, things like that. And even in early Archie Sonic, Amy's involvement was minimized due to her being framed as a young child, even after she artificially aged herself to be closer to the rest of the cast. But now the IDW comics have come out, which again are canon to the rest of the series so far, we get to see a lot more of what sort of shenanigans they got up to in their early years. In the Sonic the Hedgehog 30th Anniversary Special Story, Seasons of Chaos, once again penned by Ian Flynn, Sonic and the others are attacked by their metal doubles, which by the way, Metal Knuckles comes back, that is awesome, I love it. And of course, during this time, Amy squeals in anticipation of going on another exciting adventure with Sonic. only to be left behind in the dust, lamenting the fact that she can't seem to get a chance to prove she can be a hero like the boys can. It's consistent with her already established desires. Again, Amy is very much crushing on Sonic and would enjoy doing just about anything with him, but what really makes her eyes light up is the idea of being on an adventure with him, even if she's wary of going without backup. Fortunately, she runs into Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel, and together they manage to find a couple of Chaos Emeralds. It isn't until they run into Fang the Sniper, or Hunter, I guess, whatever. Bean the Dynamite and Bark the Polar Bear are also with him, and they get into a brawl over the discovered emerald, and Amy ends up face to face with Bark. It's clear that she's still inexperienced at this point in her life, and as much as adventure sounds fun, she's still trying to find herself and is scared to pick fights she doesn't know if she can win if she doesn't have someone to back her up. All this time, Mighty's been picking up the slack, but now that he's already preoccupied, now Amy has to go toe-to-toe with Bark all on her own. Nevertheless, once she's reunited with Sonic and the others, her bravery perks back up and the adventure becomes fun for her again, and the day is saved, of course. Amy is disappointed to learn that Sonic is going to be going on his own again, but she does get a promise out of him that she won't be left behind on adventures anymore. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the case. We are going to have moments where she's left behind, but we'll get into that. The next thing in the hypothetical timeline would be Sonic Superstars, where again, the gang gets back together to stop Eggman, Fang, and new character, Trip the Sun Gazer, from executing the Doctor's new evil plan. Amy's clearly more confident in herself now than she was before, and it's her unique kindness and compassion that convinces Trip to finally turn on the evildoers and join Sonic's team. Even in the face of an exploding space base, Amy is starting to prove that she has a lot of potential, and she's that much closer to being just like Sonic. But after the events of Sonic Superstars, we fast forward to the modern era, and clearly Sonic's been busy doing stuff without Amy, as she's transitioned into a mundane domestic life. And she hates it. She still wants to go on adventures. She still wants to be seen as an equal in Sonic's eyes, not as someone who needs rescuing, and not even someone who can be helpful from time to time. She wants to be on par. She doesn't just want to be with Sonic, she wants to be like Sonic. In Sonic Shuffle, she tells a vision of Illumina exactly that when asked what her dream is.
My dream! Someday, I want to be like Sonic!
She wants to be a hero in her own right, and during her story in Sonic Adventure, she takes a very big step in that direction. Now you may think I'm referring to the moment at the very end of her story where she finally stops running from E100 Alpha, or Zero as the game calls it, and finally womans up and takes out the bucket of bolts that's been harassing her all game long, exclaiming to the world in the aftermath that she's going to do her best and make Sonic respect her as an equal.
Just watch me! I'll make that Sonic respect me! And by that time it's gonna be too late! Rock!
To be fair, that would be a good guess. That is considered one of the defining moments of her character development. But the one that I'm referring to happens when she gets between Sonic and the badly damaged E102 Gamma, standing in defiance of her hero for the very first time. Up until this point, she'd never challenged Sonic before on anything. She followed his every move. Every decision he made was justifiable because he was Sonic the Hedgehog, the hero she looked up to. But in that one moment, Amy evolved beyond that simplistic view of who and what Sonic is to her. He's no longer the infallible, invincible hero she put on a pedestal. Now he was just as mortal as anyone else, and in her quest to become her own hero, she could not allow the destruction of someone who in her eyes had redeemed themselves, even at the hands of her idol. So she gets in the way, refusing to move aside even after Sonic berates her. Now let's be clear about one thing. This is Sonic the Hedgehog we're talking about here. If he really wanted to, he could move Amy out of the way himself and take Gamma out before Amy even had the chance to object. But the standoff ends with Sonic backing off his attack, and Gamma is spared because of Amy's compassion. In that moment, I believe not only did Amy's character evolve, but her love for him did as well. Because in spite of the fact that she had to stop him from making what she perceived to be a mistake, the fact that he listened and respected her judgment enough to trust her made him even more admirable in her eyes. Sonic is a hero, but now he's also, well, human, so to speak. He can make mistakes, but he was willing to listen to her and trust that she knew what she was talking about. And that made Sonic even more special than when he was the unstoppable force of nature she saw him as before. And it actually makes her even more confident in striking out on her own. This manifests itself in her actions during Sonic Adventure 2. Upon seeing Sonic captured by Gun, Amy decides to take it upon herself to bust Sonic out of prison, and somehow she even managed to make it to Prison Island without anyone's help. It isn't until Amy finds herself outnumbered by Eggman, Shadow, and Rouge that she loses her nerve. And that's totally understandable. She isn't exactly as battle-hardened as Tails is, who by the way happens to be driving around in the Cyclone, which has a massive gun in the front and missile launchers to boot, so he has a reason to be a lot braver than Amy right now. And even if she were battle-hardened, 3 against 1 is still asking a lot, especially after she ended up hugging one of her enemies because she couldn't tell it wasn't Sonic in her endless excitement. After Tails rescues her, she joins forces with him in their shared mission to help Sonic, and after seeing him again, for real this time, she's much more serious, and also playful at the same time, than she would have been previously. Whereas before she was flustered and just unable to control her enthusiasm, now seeing Sonic, she teases him about his situation and just oozes confidence. Again, she's seen Sonic as more than just a hero now. He's not just Sonic the Hedgehog, the fastest thing alive. He's just Sonic. And with that revelation, she doesn't feel the need to be nervous or jumpy around him anymore, like she would have been in the past. She's sassy, and even tries to get a rise out of him, but also knows when it's time for the game to stop, and that it's time to get serious again. Her crush on him doesn't override her desire to be like him. She's going to do the hero thing and rescue Sonic rather than drag out the flirting until she gets some kind of forced confession out of him. That's not what she's after. She's just being playful. Again, her love has evolved beyond hero worship. Now she's beginning to see him on equal footing as a person. The story continues with Amy joining the heroes on the adventure in a support role of sorts. As she wasn't written to be playable, her influence is limited during the story, and she spends a lot of the time lamenting how she keeps getting left behind by everyone. So much for that earlier promise not to get left behind anymore. It isn't until Eggman has her at gunpoint that she takes center stage, and Sonic has to come running to save her since Tails can't do anything without Eggman pulling the trigger. Yeah, it's one of the darker moments in Sonic, I gotta admit. As Sonic rushes to the rescue, Amy has to be thinking that she should have done more to stop this from happening. Once again, she's the damsel in distress, and Sonic has to save her. And she has to listen to all the taunts Eggman shoots Sonic's way about how helpless she is and how her life is in his hands. As someone who wants to be a hero like Sonic, this has to make Amy feel like she's taken a major step back. And even when Sonic arrives and Eggman taunts him by calling her his girlfriend, she clearly doesn't seem even remotely moved by the label. Normally, she would be excited about the idea of being Sonic's girlfriend, but she knows how serious this is. Even after Sonic says nothing to deny it, it doesn't make her feel very good. Sure, she undoubtedly appreciates the fact that Sonic came to save her, but she likely doesn't feel very good about the fact that she's put him in a lose-lose situation. Nevertheless, Sonic maintains his confidence, and just as Amy starts feeling like there's a plan to get them all out of this, things go from bad to catastrophic. Eggman traps Sonic inside the capsule, and Sonic is shocked by the fact that he got caught. Now Amy's seen Sonic make 2 mistakes. And as Eggman explains what's about to happen, she comes to the horrific realization that this mistake may cost him his life, and it's her fault for getting captured in the first place. As Sonic turns to her and tells her to take care of herself with a tender tone, all her hope drains away as she realizes he's saying goodbye. Even Sonic thinks there's no way out of this one. As the capsule is jettisoned towards the planet, she watches through the window as it explodes, her heart shattering as she begins sobbing, knowing Sonic is gone, and she was the reason for it. She slumps to the floor, and the whole world fades around her as Tails and Eggman do battle over the last Chaos Emerald. She wanted so badly to be like Sonic, and if she had just stayed on Earth and stayed out of the way, Sonic would still be alive. Or, on the other side of the coin, if she'd just been stronger and figured out a way to get herself out of her predicament, Sonic would also be alive in that scenario. But instead, she failed on both counts. She wasn't strong enough to save herself, and she wasn't smart enough to know when she was in over her head, and Sonic paid the ultimate price for it. The fact that he was willing to pay that price for her sake, though, only made her love for him even stronger in the most painful way possible. He was indeed a hero to the bitter end, demonstrating what it really means to be one. Amy's just learned another lesson in that moment, but mercifully, she doesn't have to spend the rest of her life reflecting on it, as she soon finds out that somehow, miraculously, Sonic survived and was able to stop the cannon from firing. In that moment, Amy evolved yet again. Now she understands what being a hero means, and she will prove to be even more determined to show what she can do, and will be like Sonic in her own way, as she finally stops complaining about being left behind and convinces Shadow to join their cause. In doing so, she is now even more convinced that they would make an amazing couple, as she has finally found a way to contribute and be a part of the team, even if it wasn't in combat or in the way that she initially intended. She watches Super Sonic and Super Shadow barely manage to take down the Bio-Lizard before it's too late, fearful that she was about to watch Sonic die for a second time, but not before pleading with them both to abandon the mission when she begins losing hope again. Perhaps the image of the capsule exploding is still fresh in her mind, and she's come to realize that a world without Sonic in it just isn't worth living in for her. Fortunately, Sonic succeeds and returns safely, although Shadow did not. As relieved as I'm sure she is, she also recognizes that Sonic is melancholy. Yet another chink in the blue hedgehog's armor. Sonic's never been more down to earth than right now, and Amy sees that he needs someone to show they have his back. So she runs up to him and asks him what's wrong. He pauses, and after a moment, he shrugs it off and perks back up a bit and tells everyone it's time to go home. True, Amy failed to get Sonic to open up about his real feelings, but once again, if you really look at the timeline of events, you can see her perspective of him shifting. Sonic is still her hero, but her affection for him is becoming deeper. He's no longer unobtainable, untouchable. He's not a god among mortals. At the end of the day, he's just like her, and that emboldens her even more as she wants to protect and take care of him just as much as he takes care of her and everyone else. Unfortunately, it's at this point that she actually becomes a little too bold. Now we pivot to Sonic Heroes and the infamous crazy phase of Amy's character. But if you think about it, and I'm about to explain why, it may not be as crazy as you might think. Already, Amy's taken multiple steps towards becoming more like Sonic, which is exactly what she wanted from the jump. Again, her dream is to be like Sonic. She's accomplished a lot, and she's become more determined than ever to continue her growth as a hero and prove herself worthy of being with Sonic. But she's also seen Sonic at his lowest, his most vulnerable, and now she knows that she can approach Sonic like he's an equal, not an idol. As a result, when Amy takes Cream and Big on their mission to find Sonic, Chocola, and Froggy, that unbridled passion and determination she has naturally leads her to actually take a few steps backwards in her development. She's stronger than she's ever been, and she's riding high on her own hype. The problem is that now she doesn't have a filter for her flirting and teasing, and she's totally unaware of the fact that she's freaking Sonic and everyone else around her out. That pattern continues in Sonic Battle, where she keeps trying to prove herself and improve herself in ways that aren't even necessary, pushing herself past the point of exhaustion and even becoming delirious in her attempt to prove to Sonic how far she's come and why they should be together, talking about how they should be learning how to raise a child together, which is way beyond any boundaries she and Sonic had before now. Sad as it is, in gaining more confidence in herself, Amy's actually taken a step backwards in how compatible she is with Sonic. She somehow views his rejections as him playing hard to get, and no one is willing to challenge her beliefs due to her tendency to resort to violence if she doesn't get her way. She's taken on a lot of Sonic's traits in the worst possible way. Running and never stopping until she achieves her goal, even if she steps on everyone's toes on her way to that goal. The patience displayed by Sonic, have to admit, is to be commended. He never once cut her off entirely, even if his body language made it clear he wasn't interested in what Amy was offering. Although Amy did manage to squeeze a date out of him during the events of Sonic Unleashed. Give him credit for that. Perhaps that unwavering devotion she has for him finally reached him, since he was looking for someone who could see past the werehog version of him. Amy made it abundantly clear that no matter what he looked like, he was still Sonic to her, because again, Amy sees Sonic, not Sonic the Hedgehog. And at the very least, we can take that as proof that Amy loves Sonic beyond just what he represents on the surface. Of course, thanks to what happened in Sonic and the Black Knight, that date that they agreed to never ended up happening, and Amy didn't take that particularly well. She's been pushing and pushing, and once she finally thinks she's got what she wants, it ends up not happening. And now she thinks he's lying to her about why. In that one moment, she's very angry with him, and maybe even feeling a little betrayed. So of course she's upset. To be clear, it isn't Sonic's fault. Amy is the one who's reacting poorly. But little does she know that certain events are about to take place, and they're going to set her down a path of growth and self-reflection that will lead to her being the hedgehog we know her as today. During the events of Sonic Forces, Sonic is captured and kept in captivity by Eggman and his forces for 6 months, as Amy becomes a part of the resistance trying to free the world of Eggman's influence. During that time, she's forced to come to grips with the idea that Sonic may really truly be gone this time. No one has heard anything in months, and all she has left to hold on to is the hope that Sonic is still alive and will make it back somehow. But until then, she's forced to do exactly what she wanted to do since the very beginning. It was never about becoming Sonic's girlfriend for her. It was always going to be just a nice bonus. She lost track of that goal. So now that he's gone, it's time for her to be like Sonic and be the hero she's always wanted to be. She can't fight like him, but she can contribute in other ways. So she supports the resistance, she keeps things organized, she helps Knuckles in being the commander of that resistance, and she does go into combat with hammer swinging whenever the situation calls for it. All the while, she dreams that Sonic is still with her, and fights for the slim hope that they will be reunited someday. In that time, it seems that Amy may have reevaluated how she does things. No longer does she endlessly fantasize about being his girlfriend. Now she just wants him back safe and sound no matter what. She may have seen during this time that he was gone, how she was acting was incredibly immature, and that she was overstepping boundaries left and right. Make no mistake, she still loves Sonic, and that bubbly, excitable young hedgehog still shows itself from time to time, even as early as the first time she hears his voice in 6 months over the intercom. But now her excitement has been tempered. She's learned how to control herself and has come to the realization that Sonic responds best when his boundaries are respected. And in spite of her brief moments of raw infatuation, the fact that she's learned and matured as much as she has, even Sonic himself is now taking notice. No longer does he run from her on sight. Now he enjoys her company, actively inviting her to accompany him on journeys, which is shown in the IDW comics the first time she appears in the series. Which, amazingly enough, she actually declines this offer, because once again, Amy Rose has evolved. She has responsibilities that need her attention. She has people counting on her to do her part, and as much as she would love to spend every waking moment with Sonic, which she says as such in conversation with him, she knows that to really be like him, she needs to stay where she's needed. As of Sonic Frontiers, it's clear that Amy's love for Sonic is still going strong in spite of her toned-down behavior. In fact, one could argue that her love for him has grown so deep that now she's realized the best way to love him is to simply let him come to her when he's ready. And when that time comes, she'll be waiting. Based on some lines uttered by Sonic during Sonic Frontiers, it's possible that her new outlook on their relationship is paying dividends, because now Sonic himself is pondering what it would be like if they were together in that way. But there's no telling what the future holds for the two of them now. One of the most defining moments shared between the two of them in Sonic Frontiers indicates that things might be changing yet again.
Hey, still thinking about the Coco?
Yeah, and more. I'm not sure what happened, but I know what I saw. A love that transcended time. I believe in that power. When this is over, I want to share that love with the world, even though it may take us far apart.
I know you'll do great. I want to hear all about it when you come back.
Now, instead of Sonic running from Amy, it's very possible that Amy herself might be going out on her own without Sonic. Not because she doesn't want to be with him. You can tell that the very idea of being without Sonic is still very painful for her. But she feels a strong conviction that she needs to do this. This is her mission, her goal, not Sonic's. She's the one who wants to spread the power of love across the world. And as much as she'll miss him, she's evolved to the point where she knows that her whole world can't revolve around Sonic. In deciding to do things differently from Sonic, she is now more like Sonic than she has ever been. Amy Rose has now fully become her own person. She is independent, she is strong, she has her own goals and aspirations separate from her love for Sonic, but that love is still there, driving her, reminding her of why she loves him and why she's doing what she's going to do. So that's why Amy loves Sonic. That's why Sonic is special in her eyes. Amy sees Sonic as a representation of everything that she wants to be. She sees his heroism. She sees his drive. She sees the care and the passion that he puts into everything that he does. That's not something that people like Shadow can say they have. That's not something that people like Knuckles. Sure, Knuckles is driven by his goal to protect the Master Emerald, but there's just something about Sonic that makes him so special. His desire to just see the world, his desire to protect the world, he's just that special. He's that unique in her eyes. Is this Amy's final evolution? The culmination of her entire journey through the franchise's history? That remains to be seen. There are many ways this could go in the years to come. I personally have my own ideas of where the relationship should go from here. If you've watched all the way to the end of this video, I thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Amy Rose's personal journey. Her growth as a character has inspired many over the years, and just as I relate to Knuckles on a personal level, there are many of you out there who I'm sure sees Amy's journey and probably feel the same way. But where do you all think Amy should go from here? How should her relationship with Sonic change, if at all? Leave your comments down below and let me know your thoughts, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Until then, I will see you all next time.